In Chapter 1, Harry Dresden is suffering from a severe headache when Morgan, covered in blood, crashes into his apartment, seeking refuge from the Wardens. Despite their fraught history, Harry decides to help Morgan, bringing him inside and using a simple spell to light candles. Morgan has multiple injuries, including a deep stab wound that requires immediate care. Harry can't take Morgan to a hospital due to the Warden's watch, so he calls Waldo Butters, a medical examiner, to tend to Morgan's wounds. Butters performs a makeshift surgery on Morgan, and they discuss their past. Harry explains that although Morgan once tried to kill him, he believes Morgan wouldn't break the laws of magic. Butters expresses concern about Harry's worsening headaches, but Harry dismisses it. The chapter ends with Harry watching over the unconscious Morgan, still unsure of the consequences his help might bring. In Chapter 2, Harry Dresden observes Morgan while he sleeps, reflecting on his age and past. Morgan, a seasoned wizard and warden, is severely injured, and Harry is left questioning why Morgan sought his help. Harry recalls the White Council's strict enforcement of the 7 laws of magic and the ruthless pursuit of those who break them. He considers that Morgan, once a relentless adversary, may be a victim of a setup. Morgan wakes, and Harry learns that Alaron Lafortier, a senior council member, is dead, with Morgan framed for the murder. Morgan explains he was found with the weapon and evidence implicating him, but he insists he's innocent. Harry suspects an inside job and agrees to help Morgan find the true killer, realizing he has a mere 48 hours before Morgan is captured. Harry's deadline to solve the case and clear Morgan is looming, and the clock is ticking. In Chapter 3, Harry Dresden heads to his half-brother Thomas's apartment to ask for help with the investigation into the White Council traitor. Harry explains the potential disaster a civil war within the council could cause, and the tight timeline he faces to identify the true culprit. Thomas, a vampire of the White Court, is initially reluctant to assist, but eventually agrees to help Harry. Harry asks Thomas to find out what the vampire courts know about the manhunt while staying under the radar. The task involves Justine, Thomas's love interest, and a White Court aide, who may have useful information. Thomas is hesitant, fearing for Justine's safety, but Harry promises to protect her as much as possible. Thomas agrees to help, and they both prepare for the dangerous task ahead, knowing the stakes are high for both the White Council and their own lives. In Chapter 4, Harry Dresden senses he's being followed, and his instincts lead him to suspect someone is tailing him. He uses his magical sight to check, which reveals a mass of twisted energy pursuing him. The sight allows him to perceive the world as a web of interconnected energies, but when he sees the terrifying entity chasing him, he's overwhelmed by fear. The sight of the creature induces a visceral, nauseating response, nearly causing him to crash his car. He struggles to regain control of his emotions and the vehicle, but is unable to focus. Eventually, he pulls over, too shaken to drive, and begins walking to clear his head. As he stumbles through the city, trying to focus on simple tasks like counting prime numbers to stabilize himself, he knows that he's in deep trouble and needs help, but he's too terrified to think clearly about what's pursuing him. In Chapter 5, Harry Dresden arrives at Billy and George's apartment, seeking refuge from a terrifying presence. After a brief moment of rest, Harry senses the creature has followed him. He urges Billy and Georgia to prepare for the imminent danger, and they quickly secure the apartment. Harry, overwhelmed by memories of past horrors, fights to regain control and clear his mind. As they prepare for the creature's next move, a massive attack ensues. The creature, a shape-shifting skinwalker, evades their efforts to capture it, even after Harry and the werewolves launch multiple attacks. The creature proves almost indestructible, changing forms and attacking with ferocity. In the aftermath, Kirby is found dead, and Andy is critically injured. As Harry and Billy carry Andy to safety, Harry realizes the gravity of the situation. The creature they're facing is a skinwalker, a nightmare from Native American folklore, signaling that their fight has just become far more dangerous. In Chapter 6, Harry Dresden ensures Georgia and Billy are focused on protecting Andy after the attack by the skinwalker. He explains to Billy that skinwalkers feed on fear and grow stronger the more afraid people become. Harry leaves to investigate the creature's purpose and reflect on the cost of the encounter, particularly Kirby's death. On his way out, he runs into Sergeant Karen Murphy, who updates him on the situation and gives him a medical kit she recovered from his car. Murphy insists on helping Harry, despite his reluctance to drag her into the supernatural dangers he's facing. She offers him a ride and presses him for information about the case, suspecting a traitor within the White Council. Harry shares his concerns, but doesn't have all the answers. As they arrive at Harry's apartment, Murphy advises him to take care of himself, and Harry, though